All right, in this video, we're going to be taking a look at building something we've not yet built. This is just kind of a for fun type of thing. It's a somewhat complicated project, so it's not something that we can just bang out super quick. So this is not something that we would care to mass produce or anything like that, but I just thought it might be a fun, interesting project. My intention is just to kind of use it as a staging piece. If we do an event, might catch somebody's eye and have them come over to our booth and take a look at some of the other things that we have to offer. Certainly we'll have it for sale, but it's just not, it's the purpose of it is not necessarily to sell it. I just think it could look cool. I don't know, I've never built one, so we're just gonna try this out. Now, we do have plans available for it. They're $5 at $5plans.com. And I really think on this particular project, like I said, it's a little bit complex. I've built things similar, and they were complex. I did a round set of end tables that are kind of similar. I did a round coffee table that was kind of similar, and those were kind of complex as well. So I think it's probably worth the $5 investment if you want to try and build it. To have all the templates available to you. We have this placement template where all of these get placed around the center hub and things, and you'll see all this as we go through and build it. But this is one project I think the plans might be beneficial for you if you want to tackle this. Okay, so I am going to build mine a little bit differently here, because what I'm going to do on the back side, so I'm going to build, it's tough to show you, but you'll see it in the build. But beyond here, these won't go all the way around. I'm going to leave the back open, and I might add a center shelf here. And what my intention is to possibly build some little boxes that will slide in and out off the back to store things. This is pretty big. This will be a pretty big finished piece with this center hub. So that's kind of what my plan is. Like I say, because I haven't built it yet, I don't really know, but that's just in my mind something I'm thinking about. Okay, so at any rate, I have all of my templates cut. So this is called the hose. So these three, that's what this is, okay? And then this is what the center hub is, and then this piece will be my top piece, my biggest piece here. Now we're building this all out of fence pickets, except for the center hub. I'm going to be using a scrap piece of 1x material for the center hub, but the rest of it's all fence pickets, or you could use pallets as well. And so because of that, you can see here our bottom plate is doubled up, and all of this is all doubled up. We're doubled up here, so we need quite a few pieces. So what I'm going to do just to get started is I'm going to use our center hub template and make two center hubs that of these pieces will attach to. So that's where I'm going to start. Get the two center hubs cut out. They're 8 3/4 diameter circles, and I think I have somewhere around here, I think I have some scrap 1x10 that I'm going to cut it out of, but they're 8 3/4 diameter circles. So if you didn't have a piece of 1x10, you could put two 2x6s together, something like that, and cut it out as well. Okay, so let me get my two center hubs cut, and then we'll kind of move on to our next step here. So now you can see we have our center hubs marked out with our center hub template, and then we're going to be using our jigsaw. I'm going to use a jigsaw to cut mine out. You know, I bought a bandsaw months ago and have never bothered to set it up, but you certainly could use a bandsaw if you had yours set up and going. So, but I'm just going to use my jigsaw, get these cut out, and then I am going to take some 60 grit sandpaper and get them all nicely sanded up here. Okay, so we'll get that done. and then we can move on. That is my raw finished cutout with my jigsaw. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and take our sander and just go ahead and clean this up a little bit with some 60 grit sandpaper. And these don't have to be super precise, identical. There is room for a little bit of wiggle room. These are not super precise, identical, because they're hand cut, so they won't be, 100% the same. But as long as they're close, that's good enough. So let me go ahead and get these sanded up, and then we'll start cutting our strips that will connect these two center hubs. So I've gone ahead and modified my center hub template a little bit. And what I've done is at every line, I put in this little cutout here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my pencil and mark each one of those points there on both pieces. And what I'm hoping this will do is it will help me line things up when I put the pieces that connect this center hub to this center hub, that the alignment from one hub to the next will be identical. Okay, so that's what I'm hoping. And so what I'm going to do, as I talked about earlier, so where each one of these are marked, that's where one of my uprights are going to go. So we're going to put one here, and then as I come around to the back side, I'm going to stop here and I'm going to leave these open. So from center, I'm just going to put one additional, and so this will be left open. And I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and use this center hub to also create one more piece, and I'm going to be using 2 fence pickets to create a center shelf here. So we're going to need, because of the diameter, we'll need 2 fence pickets to do that. So I think I'm going to do that as well. So first thing I'm going to do is mark all these points on both of my boards, and then we can go ahead and cut our strips that are going to connect the 2 hubs, and we'll go ahead and make our piece for our center shelf. And so you can see here, I'm just going to fold this template in half and make 2 pieces of fence picket to create my center shelf. So let me go ahead and get all that done, and then we'll kind of move on to the next step here. So you can see what I've done here. I've just gone and grabbed a couple pieces of scrap material of my fence picket, used that template to draw out my shape that I needed, and now you can see I have all my little tick marks on both of my pieces to help me align one piece to the other. And this is really where I think the plans will help, because we have that template that will help you get all this placement identical on both. Like I said, I've built similar things in a similar fashion, and I can tell you, like on my coffee table, this was a much larger diameter, obviously, on my coffee table. And what I found was it could get off real easy if we didn't have our exact placement. I think my coffee table, I used, I don't know, maybe 60 pieces going around the circumference of it. And so we have to keep it real square from one to the other. And with these tick marks, that will help us get this lined up so everything looks correctly. So what I need to do is I need to go ahead and get these cut out, and then I'm going to cut my uprights. Now on the computer, I've figured this out, and my little upright pieces are going to be 30 inches long, and they're going to be 1 5/8 inches wide, and that should fit around this outside circle perfectly. So I'm going to go ahead and get these cut, rip my strips and cut them down to 30 inches. I'll figure out exactly how many strips I need also. So from here we got 1 in the center, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the side, 6. So we need 12 strips if my calculations are correct. So let me go ahead and get that done, and then we'll show you how we're going to kind of put these two together. All right, so I've got my 12 strips made, 1.5 wide, and then I put my shelf together. I just used some cleats, scrap material I had laying about, popped in some 1-inch staples, and then followed that up with a couple of screws. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark the center point of this so that when I go to put in my shelf, I'll have some reference lines all the way around of where that shelf is supposed to be. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and mark my center, and I'm just going to mark it at 15. I know I'm not taking into account the thickness of the shelf, but that's okay. I don't think it's that critical. And then over here, I'm just going to be one little spot of glue in between the hash marks, but I'm going to start here. So you see there where there's 3, I'm going to start there, and then on this one also 3. So that's where my first 2 boards are going to go. So one little dab of glue in the middle, put it on there with 1.25 staples. Okay, so these are going to get nailed down with 1.25 staples. So let me go ahead, mark my center, and then I'm going to put on a couple of these strips, and then I'll come back and I'll show you some detail there. Okay, let me walk you through my logic, and then we'll see how well this actually works. Okay, so what I've done here, you can see here on this end, I've basically positioned this in the center. So I put one dab of glue, 1.25 staple through. Now, one of the main things that we're going to want to definitely make sure is that this is square to this, and it's going to be more by eye than anything, because there's no real great way to square that up per se, because it's round and not square. But you could tell by looking at it if that's a 90-degree angle or not. So you want to make sure that that is definitely as close to 90 degrees as we can get it. Okay, so and then you can see down here on this end what I did, right on between those 2 hash marks, same thing, a dab of glue. And so what I'm going to do, because on the computer this piece wasn't exactly 1.5 inches. Okay, so what I'm going to do is so I've got one here. I'm going to fast forward down to the center point of the side, which are these 2 hash marks right here, and go ahead and put one there. And then you can see, then we'll have 1, 2, 3 in between. Okay, so we want to go ahead and put one here on both sides, and then we'll fit those 3, even if there's a tiny little gap. So even if there is a tiny little gap between these, that's okay. That's not the end of the world. Okay, so that's what but rather than put this up here tight and then not be perfectly centered on when I get to that point, I want a perfectly centered piece there. And the reason I want that to be there perfectly centered is because when we're putting on our side piece here where the hose would connect, I want this to be flat to that piece. So at any rate, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come down here, put this one, square it all up as best as I can. Now, once the glue sets, that'll, kind of hold it all tight. But because we're just using one staple, it's going to have some flex to it until we leave it alone and go ahead and let it set up. So once I get all these pieces on, I'm going to leave it alone until let it sit overnight, let that glue dry up. All right, but I can work on all the other pieces in the meantime, so that come tomorrow we could just screw those pieces on and then the project will be done. So with that said, let me go ahead and get these others placed the way I think it'll work. And then I'll show you if it actually does work. And we'll talk about how complicated it was or wasn't. Now let me show you as best I can what we did here. So you can see these 2 hash marks here. We just centered that 1.25 inches. Okay, and we did the same thing down here. You got those 2 hash marks there, roughly centered between. It might be off just a touch, but again, 1.25 inch staple there. And then down on this end, same thing. There's our hash marks, center it up, and there's our hash marks centered up. Okay, so now we have 1 strip at each of our quadrant, the front, the right, and left sides. Okay, so now what we're going to do, 3 strips will fit in between here. So I'm going to go ahead and lay those on there and just kind of space them evenly. And one thing to point out too, that this could be a really cool project for, because I've actually seen it, is for some lighting. So you could leave a little bit of a gap, put in a light right here, and then have these pillars, and then of course it would be all lit up, and then that light would kind of show through these little strips. So that could be a cool light fixture as well. But we're not making light fixtures today. There's a lot of practical applications for using this case, if you will. So let me go ahead and put in 3 more, and then we'll see what that looks like for this 1 quadrant. This would be a 1/4 of our cylinder here. So let me go ahead and get those done. Now what I've done here is I've just dry fitted this. So I just laid these boards on here, but you can see our tick marks, right? And so now we can have a bit of a gauge, if you will, of how much space is going to be between each one of these. So we could, if you didn't like that space, you could maybe make that a 1/16 or a 32nd wider to fill in that gap. For me, I don't mind it. So again, there's our hash marks on this side. So everything looks like it's going to line up really nice. I'm okay with the spacing that is left. So everything looks good. So we're going to put a couple of drops of glue on these, and then go ahead and put those in place. All right, so now all these are in place, 1 staple each. And so now what we're going to do, obviously, is just fill in this other quadrant, and then add 1 to the back side of this one extra one. But we're gonna position our shelf before we add that 1 extra one. So let me get this quadrant done with 3 more sticks, and then we'll put in our shelf, position that, and then we could add our extra one on the back side. And be careful when you're putting your strips on. Don't do what I did. On the first one, I had that line facing out. We want that line facing the inside, and that'll help us position our shelf and level off our shelf on the inside of this. Okay, so let me go ahead and get those other 3 pieces on. So there you go, coming together. So we have half of our circle in place. Okay, so it's looking pretty good. So now we can turn this around, and now you can kind of see how you might utilize this same form in different ways. You can make these bigger, do the same type of thing with more of these sticks, and then when we put our center shelf in, they could make for some pretty good looking little plant stands. I mean, there's a lot of different things that you could do with this. So but you could see how we have those lines in place, so we'll be able to orient our shelf pretty well spot on where we need to orient it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it down. I'm going to put a little drip of glue, just some little dots of glue all the way around, and then tack in my shelf on the sides, and then probably the front, and then come back and do all these in between. So that's kind of what my vision is. Okay, so let me go ahead and do that, and we'll get our shelf positioned. So there you go. Now our shelf is in place. It's looking pretty good, and you can see it would make for a cute little plant stand. And your project could be over. But we're not making plant stands, we're making fire extinguishers. So now I'm just going to kind of set this aside, let this dry up overnight. We'll add on our little detail pieces, and then we'll kind of finish up the project. So now what we're going to do is work on those detail pieces. We've got a lot of parts to cut for the base and for the top and for the little details on the sides and the front. So we're going to get all that done and show you how all that is done, and then we can put it on this piece and we'll be finished up. So let me show you what we're going to do next. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to use my template here. So what I did, I printed out 2 of these and taped it together. That gives me a half circle, and this gives me an 11-inch from point to point here. So what I've done is I've cut out 8 pieces that are approximately 12 inches long. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this in place and just kind of, and I'm going to cut out, now it says 8, but I'm only going to cut 4 in this semicircle shape. Okay, so I'm going to cut 1, sand it all down, get it all nice and perfect. Then I'm going to use that for the template for the other 3, and then I'm going to cut them out. But so I'm only cutting 4 of these circles, and I'll explain why in our next step. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to cut 1, sand it all nice and perfect, use that as a template for the rest. Now, if you have the option and you have the materials, you could cut 1 and then use that as a router template for all the others, and they would all be perfectly identical, and it might save you a little bit of time as well. In my case, I'm not gonna bother with a router template and all that, but I mean, that is another way to go when you have repeatable shapes. You know, you could use a router template if you had that set up. Okay, so now we have 4 discs all cut out and sanded off, looking nice. And I will tell you this, I was surprised at how quickly that came together. I thought there would be a little bit more work involved in doing that, but that came together pretty quickly. So what I've done now is I've just measured over 5.5, used my carpenter square to draw me a straight line, and then the uncut pieces, we're just going to connect these 2 semicircles together, okay? And then we'll flip it over, and we'll use this circle as a template to cut out this one. So it'll be like this, okay? Again, some 1-inch staples to hold those 2 together. Might even put a little bit of wood glue there, some 1-inch staples, and what I'll probably do is come back and drop in a couple of screws also. But then we'll flip this over. Our perfect circle will be on the other side, and we'll just run our jigsaw along it, give it 1 more sand off, and then we'll have either the top or the bottom all complete, ready to go on our other piece over there. Okay, so we're going to do that. Basically, we have to do that twice. So anyhow, we're going to get these attached, and then I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about here. So you can see what that looks like put together, and then when we flip it over, I may have made a mistake. I used 1¼ staples instead of 1-inch staples. I forgot I had switched them out. Darn it anyhow. So not the end of the world, we can fix it, but I will need something a little bit more powerful to pop this off here. I'll get me a hammer, pop this off here, which will trim those staples back, and then we'll go ahead and cut out our circle. Okay, so there we go. So again, we're just going to use our jigsaw, saw the way around it, give everything a nice sand, and then we'll have our 1 piece, and then we'll repeat the whole process for these pieces. All right, so we have the top and bottom of our hydrant. These are 11-inch diameter circles, and you can see that, you know, the ends, they because of the way we cut them and then sanded them, they're both practically identical, nice and smooth all the way around. Now, one thing I can tell you, If you had a router set up with a flush trim bit, that would have been a lot easier, because you'd already had these. You put on the rectangular ones over the top. You could have just come in with your router and bop, and a little bit of sanding and you're done. So I did spend a little bit extra time because I don't have my router set up with the flush trim bit. Now, what's next? We have to do the exact same process. We need 3 of these double thickness that are 7 inches in diameter, and then we need 1 that's 8 3/4. Okay, so I'm not going to bore you with that whole process all over again, but just know that we need 6 7-inch half circles, and then we'll put them together, cut them out, and then we need 2 8 3/4 half circles, and then we'll put the rectangular ones on. But they everything needs to be double thick. Okay, and actually no, I misspoke. So we need 3, 4, a total of 4 7-inch circles double thick. Okay, so we're going to have to cut 8 half circles that are 7 inches and put them together. So we need 4 and 1 8 3/4. Okay, so I'll go ahead and get those all done up, and I'll come back. Show you a big pile of circles, and then we'll finish it off on how we're going to attach it to the hydrant itself. So we have our 4 7-inch circles made. We have our 1 8 3/4. We are going to mount a couple of additional pieces onto all of these. We need 4-inch squares and 2.5-inch squares on all of them. Okay, so we're going to do that, and then we're going to come up from the bottom and screw these 2 together with a couple of 2.5-inch screws probably. So that's what we're going to do there, and then we're going to put our 4-inch and our 2-inch 2.5-inch squares on top of here, and then this is going to go on top of our 11-inch circle that we have over there. Okay, this will become the top of the fire hydrant. So I'm going to go ahead and cut my my 4-inch squares and my 2.5-inch squares, get those done, get those mounted, and then we'll show you how we actually attach it to our pillar over there. So we have our 4-inch square, a little bit of wood glue, center it up on our hub, a few staples to hold that in place, and then we're going to just put this one, a little bit of wood glue, staples to hold it in place. So we're going to, and I've already put all this together, so this is all one piece now. Got some 2.5-inch screws from the back side, and so that's ready to be mounted to our other piece that's already on our pillar over there. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap these up, and then we'll show you how to install them. All right, so all of our hubs are ready to go. Now I did go alternate the wood grain. So on the big one, I had to go in the same way, but then I reversed it here, so it's vertical wood grain. Don't know how big a deal that is. A couple of staples holding all this on, some wood glue. Now we're going to go mount those to our rest of our hydrant. We've got a tower here. So all I did was just take 4 screws and take my 11-inch round and attach it to my other assembly here. Okay, so this is the piece that's going to sit on top. Now for the bottom, again, 11-inch round, I just put 4 screws in here. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're just going to set this on top and then come up from the bottom here with some 2.5-inch screws to hold this whole assembly to the top of this. It's pretty straightforward stuff. Okay, so let me get that done. All right, we're almost ready for the big reveal. So what we did, we came down from here down 7 inches, okay, and to the top of this, and then you can see we put in 2 screws on the back side of our hub, and so that is what our back side looks like. And then if we turn this around, then you can kind of see what the front looks like. And that is our little fire hydrant. Now what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to backlight this with some LED lights possibly, and just kind of use it as a lamp with all the little cracks. I probably will paint it and what have you too, but that's what the top of it looks like. So turned out, I think, to be a fun little project. I hope you liked it. I'll give you a couple more quick shots of it, staged up a little bit, and then we'll call this one done. So there's a final look, and I just think it's going to be pretty cool. I like the top of it. I like the rusticness of it. I think when I get it painted up, it'll look pretty cool. I don't know if I'll paint it red, or I was thinking maybe like a yellow, kind of like a mustard yellow or something, just something with a pop of color. But pretty fun piece. It's pretty big, you know. It's you know, one could argue it's a little bit taller than a traditional fire hydrant. If I had to do over again, I like the diameter of it. I like the size of our hubs, but I may not go 30. I may go 24, or I don't know. Like I said, I do like it just like it is, but it is obviously probably a little bit taller than an actual fire hydrant. Will I ever make those boxes slide into the back? I don't know if I actually will or not, but you could see even from the side, it looks to be a complete cylinder. So what we're gonna, like I said, I left it open on the back side because I plan on putting lights inside of it. And I will be able to show you that too once I get it in place and with the light in it. But that is the finished product. I hope you like this one. Thanks for watching.